After exactly 2,000 meters of rowing, the Olympic final was decided by about 2 centimeters. And at every level, competition is incredibly well matched. Whether you are a masters rower or a junior, a club rower, you have to do everything you can. You have to optimize your training to improve your fitness, and you have to work on your boat moving technique in every possible way to get every inch of stroke length out there. And this Olympic final took about 240 strokes for each of the finalists, and for each one of those strokes, each of those finalists did about 10,000 practice strokes, maybe more. And by recording and analyzing your practice data, you can make sure that each one of those practice strokes brings you closer to your goal. And even at our level, we put in thousands of practice strokes for each stroke in our most important race. And recording your data and making sure that you're moving towards your goal, that's what I call deliberate practice. Welcome. So my name is Roosendaal, and in the next 20-25 minutes I'm going to show you how I use data to make my boats go faster. And I'm going to show you 3 ways to do that. One is using power and heart rate to measure your fitness progress towards your training plan. The second one is deep diving into all the data that you can collect about your rowing to figure out what really makes the boat go fast, and on the other hand, what does not make the boat go fast, what stops the boat. And the third one is to use technique metrics to work on improving your technique and making your rowing more efficient. So that at the end of the talk, you will have a good understanding of how I have done that and how you could start applying that to your own rowing so that you move forward. So deliberate practice, what is that? And the answer is also on the back of my shirt. It's basically a cycle: plan, execute, measure, adjust. And I'm not here to advocate for one training plan or another, but to me it's important that you do have a training plan, because that's where the measuring and execution, the measuring and adjustments are. You do have a training plan, and you know when your most important race is and how you prepare for that most important race, what the goal is in the weeks and months leading up to that race. And even for each session, you should try to have a special goal, so you know what you are trying to achieve with that session. And the way I do it is I sit down on Sunday evening and I write down my few trainings and make sure that I have some goals for those sessions. Execute. Just go on the erg or on the boat and row. This is the part where you have to sweat a little bit, but you know, if you keep sitting on the couch, you will not get very fit. So this one you have to do. And while you execute, you measure. And I'm not going to go into detail on what you can, how you can do the measurements, but there are apps on your phone, both for Android and for iPhones and even for Windows phones. Get a little nice holder to put the phone in your boat, or you can use one of these is a Coxmate. There are sensors that you can put on your oars or on your slide, and so that you can measure. And I just have to say that there are representatives of the manufacturing industry in the audience. So we have the guys who developed these sensors, Quispy. They are over there in the Quispy t-shirts. And we have Alistair from Coxmate. So After the talk, if you want to ask these guys about their apps or tools, that I think it will be a great discussion in the end. What is important is that you measure each session, each stroke, and then after you're done, you upload the data to the cloud. And I have developed this website, Roosendaal.com, that you can use to analyze the data. So I'm just going to show you how that looks on my site. I'm going to go to the live version of that. So this is, after your row, you see a workout summary, and you see the basics, the date and the time, the distant rows, the duration, the name, you give your workout a name for easy searching, some kind of summary, and a couple of basic graphs. And these graphs are automatically generated. I'll come back to that. I will show you that later. But basically, it shows the elementary things, the things you should always measure when you're rowing: your heart rate, your stroke rate, the pace, how fast you are going, whether you measure that with an impeller or with the GPS. And if you have a power meter in the boat, a system to measure power, there are several ones on the market. You can have a power, and if you are able to invest in getting a power meter, then I would definitely recommend you to do so, because it makes quantifying your training so much easier. On the ergometer, you already have power on the Concept 2, so you're good there. So then the adjustment part, that's the hard part. When you see that you're not progressing towards your goal, you have to change, you have to cook a little bit different training plan, put in some different ingredients so that you are adjusting. And the nice thing about measuring each and every session is that you have all the data there, and you can base your decisions on facts. You don't have to guess anymore. You can really see where you're going, where your fitness is not progressing or plateauing, and you can start doing that. And so then you have a new plan and you go through the cycle again. Before I dive into the first part where I explain to you how to measure your fitness progress, I have to tell you something about the 3 types of data that we have in rowing. And these are per session data, per stroke data, and in-stroke data. So per session data, what do you think are per session data?
Total distance.
Total distance, yes. It's one number per session. Average heart rate, total duration, maximum heart rate. Or when you are a coach and you ask your kids, how hard was it? How hard was it? And the kid says, oh, coach, it was very easy. So that's like a 1 on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of hardness. That is also a number, and it's actually a good number to ask yourself, how hard was it? And give it a rating and write that down. So these are per session data. Per stroke data. 1 data point per stroke. What are per stroke data?
Right.
Stroke rate, yes. Excuse me? Distance per stroke.
Power
output, your heart rate,
Angle.
angle, catch angle, finish angle, total effective angle, etc. Stroke length, etc. So there are many more, but the basic ones you know. And then there are in-stroke data. And this is really about the dynamics of how you accelerate the boat and how you're slowing it down. This is very interesting, especially on the recovery part where you're not having the blades in the water, but you can do a lot of things to actually slow down the boat. you all know that. So these and there are apps and devices here that enable you to measure detailed in-stroke data, each stroke, average over a set of strokes. And I'm going to show you how I use all three of those data. So those are the stroke data. So the first thing I want to show you is how to measure your fitness progress. And the way I define fitness is the power that you can hold over a certain duration. For example, 300 watts on the ergometer over 7 minutes. If I can hold that, I can row a decent 2K in just under 7 minutes. Or you can hold maybe 250 watts over 25 minutes, which is like a head race, a 6K or something like that. And I use time, duration, and not distance on purpose, because when we are on the erg, or when we are training in the single, or in the double, or in an 8, we're going at a different speed, but we will still have to have the same fitness or ability to hold a certain power over a certain duration. So the way to measure fitness is either on the erg, or if you have a power meter in the boat, to measure how long power you can hold over a certain duration. If you don't have a power meter in the boat, you have to substitute something for power. I would recommend using stroke rate, your ability to hold 36 strokes per minute over 4 minutes, for example. You cannot use boat speed, because when you are rowing on a river, or you have headwind or tailwind, it's going to be different every time. So it's better to use something. And when you upload the data to my site, the data are analyzed automatically, and for each session, the site calculates the segments over which you have been able to hold a certain power. So, and then over all your workouts, it finds, for example, the fastest 10-second interval, and in this case it was about 500 watts, and it also finds the fastest 100-second interval, the fastest 1,000-second interval. This axis is logarithmic, just to make sure that we have enough detail in the very short time and the very long time, because the difference between rowing full out for 10 seconds and rowing full out for 30 seconds is much bigger than rowing full out for 20 minutes or 20 minutes and 20 seconds, even though the difference is 20 seconds. And every time, so the green line is a fit through the data, and that is kind of the amount of power that you should be able to hold in each and every workout. Even when you were doing a heavy load, or you have a busy job with stress, you should be able to do that. The red one is calculated from the best of the best intervals, and this is really your fitness when you are really well rested, when you do a taper and you are preparing for your most important race or work test or whatever. So that is the red line. And this is actually my curve, so you know, now I have no secrets for you anymore. About a month ago, and about 3 weeks ago, I did a race, a local race back in the Czech Republic where I live. And after that race, the curve moved. And you can see that I moved quite a lot in the very, very short durations. And this is true because I was rowing in the single, and I wanted to make sure that I was in front after the first 10-15 strokes, so I really went bang on very hard after the start, and I held that for 20 strokes. But I also knew from this previous chart that I was able to hold about 320 to 350 watts for the duration of that race. So after that, I backed down to about 310, 320, and I just continue to row, and I was certain that by the last 250 meters I would have enough gas in the tank to be able to sprint if one of my competitors would try. So the really cool thing about this one, this chart, is that you can figure out how hard you should be able to go. If you have a power meter in the boat, you can really row against a number. The other cool thing is I do a lot of races in the open category because there's just not enough races where I live, and I always finish last, right? But at least I can race against myself. I can try to move my my curve, and I really find that very, very motivational thing. And since I started doing this, I have been starting to pass people during races, which I didn't do previously. I feel much better at the 500 meter mark, and I'm able to hold it. So it still hurts, you know. You all know how much it hurts. But I think I've become a little bit smarter in that way. There is another way to see if your fitness is progressing, and that is by comparing similar workouts. And this is a workout on the work that a friend of mine, Greg Smith, one of the guys who helped me a lot with starting this project, is doing, and it's on the Urk. It's 4 times 15 minutes, and it goes like 9 minutes at the high power, and then 6 minutes at a lower power. You do that 4 times. And he did this where he repeated this workout. The first one he did in January, and the second or a later one in May. And you can see from the power versus the distance that he was, and in the intensive parts, he was kind of comparable between the 2 workouts. He went a little bit faster in May, and in the easier parts, he was pulling a little bit harder in May. But now look at his heart rate. So in January, his heart rate went up much higher, even when he was pulling the same power or easier. The difference on average is about 16 beats per minute, but you can see here it goes really. So from January to May, this guy progressed quite a lot in his fitness. So the second part is about diving deep into the data to figure out what makes your boat go fast. It's maybe a little bit intimidating, but hang on. You will see lots of charts, and we can discuss in detail afterwards. So because I am tracking all my strokes, I can make this chart. And this is on the horizontal axis, you see the power. How hard am I working? And on the vertical axis, boat speed. And each dot is 1 stroke. And this was a chart made over a couple of weeks. Each dot is 1 stroke. And you can see, yes, roughly when I pull more watts, I go faster. But there's a huge spread in the data, right? Here at 300 watt, it goes all the way between 220 per 500 meter and 150 per 500 meter. So what is causing that spread in the data? It could be the weather, headwind, tailwind. It could also be my technique. So we need to find a way to go beyond this chart and to really find out some of the mechanisms behind that. And you can do that. And the way I do that is you can automatically group your strokes by a certain parameter. And here I'm grouping all the strokes with the same stroke rate together. So each circle now is a group of strokes, a set of strokes from all my sessions over that exact same data set. And all of them fall within the same range of stroke rates. And now you can see a much clearer progression. Of course, the darker dots are the higher stroke rates. The higher stroke rates, I'm working harder and I'm going faster. So this is not really surprising results, doesn't really go far. But I can also do this for drive length. This is the total drive length. And each circle is now a stroke where I pulled in a certain range of drive lengths. And I have a little variation here, but you can see that at the shorter drive lengths, I'm not going faster, and actually here at the longer drive lengths, I'm going as fast as at less power than at some of the shorter drive lengths. And I must say that here I zoomed into strokes that are only between 30 and 40 strokes per minute, just to focus on race pace stroke rates. So, and again, the result is not so surprising. I guess you all knew that a long stroke is a better stroke than a short stroke. But you can also look at it at other parameters.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If you're rowing longer and producing less power but going faster, would that be attributed to tailwind conditions or something like that? How can you account for that?
It's an excellent question, because this set of stroke rates is me going up and down the lake, and I always return to the same point. So over one outing, on average, the wind is going to be neutral.
It's going to average out, yeah.
It's going to average out.
Yeah.
It's an assumption. You may always launch with tailwind and then always the wind turns, but in my situation, on average, it averages out. So this is average over all weather conditions, with waves, without waves, bad water, etc.
Yep.
So here is I'm rowing with a MK Empowered Warlock. You have heard of that, Measures Power. And they have this wash parameter. And wash is when you make a stroke, your power, your force curves go up and then it drops down. And the bigger value of wash is basically the angle over which you are not pulling much anymore. So you're fluffing out the stroke. The higher values are supposed to be the worse values. I have spent weeks this spring trying to optimize wash. And then I made this plot. So here is the good values, 8 degrees, 10 degrees, and yes, I'm pulling hard at 8 degrees and I'm making a point of finishing my stroke. But actually there's a big plateau here where this is kind of my natural value if I don't really work on wash. I'm somewhere between 12 and 15. And this metric doesn't really help me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong when I try to finish strong. Maybe I need to do a video of myself to see what I'm doing wrong. So you have to do this for your own rowing, because maybe you have an excellent finish and you produce a different chart. But you can see that I've wasted a few weeks of focusing on the wrong metric. So that is what I meant by looking what makes the boat move and what doesn't make the boat move.
Do you think there's a relationship between the last chart and this chart?
Between the length?
Well, in theory, the other chart's showing you that you're rowing longer but produce sometimes not necessarily going faster. And if you're producing less washout here, you're rowing longer technically. And they seem to be showing the same thing.
Yeah, but here I did the absolute drive length, so really the angle between catch and finish. There's also one that is the effective drive length.
Oh, okay.
So that is related to wash and slip, but I didn't go into it.
Okay.
So for wash, I mean, what is sort of a goal? Like, what would you think an Olympic rower might be doing?
So NK, in collaboration with the famous Dr. Kleshnev, had produced some charts, and they were around 8 to 10 according to Kleshnev. And it's different for women and for men and for lightweight and etc. But I think you should really, if you are using this warlock, you should look at your own rowing and figure out what's good for you, and not waste time on optimizing wash when there is no coach telling you what you're doing wrong at the finish, right? So there's always a role for a coach or a video analysis to really tell you what's going on. So, and the good thing about figuring out what metric works for you and helps you move forward is that a lot of these devices and apps, they can show you that metric while you're rowing in the boat. And now you have one number, and you, for example, when I was focusing on wash, which I shouldn't have done, I just put on the wash number, and each stroke I try to get the best out of it. And I figured out how I can do that, sit up straight, pour, etc. And it's like as if you have a coach with you in a launch who shouts at you at each stroke. You're doing it right, wrong, right, right. And that really helps you progress much faster when you're working on technique, especially for us masters who not always have a coach with us for each outing. It really makes you focus on that. Of course, you have to focus on the right things. So, back to drive length. We know it's an important parameter. So I don't have to watch drive length for each stroke that I make during the row, but I can, because I have all the data on the web, I can look at a workout. This is one typical workout, steady state, and I can look at drive length versus distance, for example. And because I've been working on drive length, and I can see the average is 106 degrees, that's the total angle from catch to finish. And I'm, according to the management system that I'm using, and I'm quite happy with that. That's kind of my target value. You can also see that at the beginning of the outing, when I'm fresh, I'm a little bit longer. Then towards the end, maybe I get distracted or tired. And that is something, well, it tells you the truth about the outing. Now, doing this for all the metrics after every outing, I'm not doing that. I don't think anybody would be doing that. But the good thing is that you can do statistics per outing. And then you can do a chart like this that you can also use on my website. And this is what I call the box chart, and I will take some time to explain what it is. So here you have the date of your row. May to June in 2016, and each of these box is one outing, or all the strokes you took on that date. So inside the box there is a line which is the average. The gray box is where the majority of your strokes are. More than 50% of your strokes are in that gray box. And the whiskers here, they show you the extremes. So only 5% of your strokes are outside those whiskers. So if you want to focus on drive length, and especially if you're rowing in a crew in a bigger boat, you want your drive length to be long and you want it to be consistent. You like to row with a stroke seat who goes short, short, long, short. No, so you want to be consistent. So what you want is the average to be the same from day to day. And you want the gray boxes to be very, very small. And this is a chart that we measured on the Concept to Earth with a guy we were working with. He was a beginning rower. And you can see there's lots of jumping around, and the gray boxes are very, very. After about a year, this is the same guy, May to June 2017. And look, he has gotten longer. From 1.2 to almost 1.4, and he's gotten much more consistent because you can see the gray boxes are very narrow. And also this is a very nice tool to monitor the progress of yourself or of the people you are coaching to see that they are working on technique and being consistent. So the last part is in-stroke metrics. So this is the famous force curve. I guess everybody has seen that one in front of, on your. Do you know how a good force curve looks like? Or how it's supposed to? Is this a good force curve?
Taller at the front, right?
How do you know?
Fantastic.
This guy is rowing 29 strokes per minute and he's doing 2.08. Is that very good?
No.
So, but you can, you can't see that really from the stroke. Still, I believe that in-stroke metrics, acceleration of the boat, are very, very useful. There are not many accessible tools that can measure the force inside the stroke. There is, of course, the WEBA system, and there's a couple of others. This one is from the Quiske system that I've been using, and it doesn't measure force, it measures the boat acceleration and the boat speed. And I've taken 2 strokes of myself in the single, and you can see at a low stroke rate, I accelerate the boat, accelerate more, and then the boat runs flat during the recovery. During higher stroke rates, I'm accelerating. There's something weird going on here around my finish. My finish is not so good, probably. But the point is that to understand what's going on, how I'm accelerating, you really need to relate back to things like video analysis or have a coach look at you to be able to understand. And it takes some time to understand how your ideal acceleration curves should look. So this is definitely not something that you will do every training because it takes time, but you can do it. Another cool thing is that with these sensors on your oar, you can measure the angle of your oar, and this is a couple of strokes that I did. And it's basically, this is the catch, my blade dives deep, and it kind of washes out. And this is the recovery where it's sort of level, and then it maybe goes a little bit closer to the water, away from the water, and it goes up. So you can use these kind of things to monitor typical mistakes like flying the blades high before the catch. Or if you put the sensor under the seat, you can do the measure if people are doing the bum, the shoving with the bum mistake. So I think this is really a nice thing to put in people's boats and monitor all the mistakes here.
Is the color in that just time? So the green is earlier and the red?
No, the color is basically 3 or 4 sets of strokes. So I did intervals, and I took 1 set from each interval, and that is kind of the stroke. And each circle is 1 individual stroke. With the Quiske portal, you can also do averages. So then the chart becomes a little bit more easy to read, but you miss the information on how consistent you are from the stroke to stroke. This is at rowing performance. So I've shown you 3 ways to optimize your rowing. First, I've shown you how you can plan and measure your fitness progress using data. Second, I've shown